Watched watched the movie The Eternals the other day. I didn't watch it all, but I watched enough of it. It reminded me of something that I heard a while ago from William Cooper. If anybody doesn't know who he is, he was, he would be considered a legend in the truth community, that's for sure. Wrote a book called Behold the Pale Horse. Gets into a lot of, secret societies, occulted information, occulted history. Gets into bankers and all that jazz. And he was doing that in the 80s and 90s. And, as far as I know, he was a Navy veteran. Had a lot of time in government facilities and saw a lot of things. So, very interesting man to listen to. He's pretty well known as being one of the first guys to call out a certain thing that happened in 2001. Even to the name of the person that they blamed it on. Said it a year before anyone even really knew that person's name. So, very intelligent man. But what it reminded me of that he was talking about was he did he's probably the first guy to ever do a movie decode, because he did it on 2001 Space Odyssey, Stanley Kubrick movie, which Kubrick is just so fascinating. And there's a lot of good talks about him, and I've read a couple books about him. I don't read many books, but I've read a couple books about him. He was just fascinating to me. And watching Stanley Kubrick's movies, it's like you have to watch the background during every scene, because the background is telling you more about the scene, and he was very specific about what he put in every frame of his movie scenes. So listening to William Cooper talk about 2001 Space Odyssey, I have never heard a better decode about 2001 Space Odyssey. And I guarantee if William Cooper was alive right now, he could probably say 100 more things about it that he didn't know at that time. Because again, he was doing this when we didn't have YouTube. We weren't really able to, go to a place where a collective community of people were talking about the same things. He was pretty much all alone when it came to these subjects, because even if you wanted to find his book in the mid 90s, early 2000s, I mean, good luck. You would have had to go to a really mom and pop bookstore that it was probably buried away in the back corner of something, so most people didn't even find it. Nowadays you could see it in Barnes and Noble under the conspiracy section. But the way he was talking about 2001 Space Odyssey was that even himself, when he first watched that movie, he said he walked out of the theater and he knew he saw something very important, but he had no idea what it was. And and I bet everybody who's ever seen that for the first time feels that. You have to watch that a lot to really get the scope of what's being said there. And then he was talking about the fact that these movies are made for the initiated, which I completely see that. It's almost like it's a way for the initiated to talk to each other out in public, where most people that see it, it'll go right over their head. But if you understand occulted history, mythology, biblical history, you put those together and you can get a real good idea of what's being said to you in these movies. Again, so I was watching The Eternals, and, you know, they have a character called Gilgamesh in there, which, if anyone's ever seen the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh or read or studied it, it predates the biblical flood of Noah's Ark, and is basically the same story. And you know, there's every continent has a flood myth, and they all usually predate the Bible too. So, you know, it's pretty common knowledge that there was a worldwide event that happened, and it could have been 10,000 years ago, it could have been 1,000, it could have been 300. Who knows? We really don't know, because as many people research history, they get to the point where we don't really understand much prior to 1850. And that's, you know, that's less than 200 years ago. So to think we know what, you know, the dinosaurs were doing or whatever, you know, that's there's a lot of educated guesses going on there. Which, again, whatever, I don't want to get into that. But so going back to the Eternals, they have a character named Gilgamesh, and that's a Sumerian flood epic. This is the story of Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh seems to be identical to the biblical Nimrod. So, you know, like, as you're watching this movie, it's pretty clear they just took the story of the Anunnaki, the Sumerian Anunnaki, and redid it to be the Eternals. But see, they make them out to be heroes, and I don't see that. I see them causing the issue and having the solution. And that's really evident in the very first scene. The first time you see the bad guys, they're like a parasitic creature. Guess who's right there to save all the humans? Oh, the Eternals. And you know, that's very similar to, you cause the problem and have the solution ready to go. And it's pretty clear that they're controlling the minds of the you know, I don't know what to call them, human or men or women, you know, they're being manipulated by these Eternals. The Eternals decide what technology to give them, what knowledge to give them, and, you know, if they're good enough to, you know, be able to take this knowledge. So, you know, they don't really necessarily show the human and man and women as a slave to the Eternals, but they're pretty much slaves to the Eternals. And of course they're helpless, you know, like, I love these movies. They just make the man and woman just seem so helpless, and they need all these great gods and, you know, these beings to come save them all the time. You know, it's always somebody else. Nobody can save themselves, or, you know, look inwards and you know, understand that you don't always need that. It's usually right in here, you know. So made me really go back to what William Cooper was saying, is that these movies are made for the initiated and the illuminated, and they must really get some kicks and giggles from these movie producers. You know, like, I can only imagine how they watch these movies, because they know most people will never understand it. You know, they may see the biblical side of it. They may see the mythological side of it. they'll never put them together, and they'll almost always miss the occulted side of it. So, just interesting to me. Just interesting. It's not a good movie. And again, like Matt from Quantum of Consciousness was talking about it earlier. Not the Eternals, but he was talking about movie reviewers that get into, these agendas behind, movies like Black Panther, or even like the last Avengers. Like, it was all social justice warrior type stuff. And that's really Star Wars. That's all they've been pumping out. And Matt, he's got a great point that they do it to get more negative energy out of you, because you're going to hate it. And they need that. But again, Matt, I think they are talking to each other, not us. Could be their way of showing where they're at in their game plan, so others are ready. I know they have to tell us most of the time, but again, most people won't catch it. There was a lot of little notes I wrote down on the movie Eternals, but I just figured I'd just talk about it out of the top of my head here. A character, it's the Indian character. I don't know his name in the movie. He's an actor. He was a comedian too, so now he's a giant buff hero, or so-called hero, I should say. But his character, if anyone's ever studied demons and what a jinn is, Jinn, as soon as I saw his character, I was like, woo, that looks like a jinn to me. And he had all the same type of attributes that go to it. He was also an actor, playing an actor who is an eternal. So, demons and actors usually go pretty hand in hand from what I've seen. But, so to me, that can't be a good guy. And I'm sorry, but anything that comes out of a black triangle that's floating in the sky with no markings on it, anything that comes out of that, it's probably not a good thing. I would say. And that was their ship. It's just silly. But the symbology was off the charts through that Eternals movie. It's not very good, like I said, and I don't know how they can even make their money back. It must be to the point right now where that's mostly done through a computer, so they don't really even have to spend that much money on movies. That's the only thing I can think of, because there's no way, like, if that movie costs even $50 million, they're like, maybe they made it back, but there's no way they can keep justifying putting out this this type of agenda-based movies, and everybody's calling them out, yet they keep doing it. Like, I can go watch a YouTube fan-made movie from, like a movie about a Marvel character that a fan made on YouTube, and it's 1,000 times better than anything Hollywood's pumped out, anything Marvel's pumped out. So for them to be able to justify making these movies for the amount of money they supposedly spend on these movies, and I know overseas it does well. I don't know how any theater's doing well since for the last 2 years, but so to me, all I can see is that they are talking to each other. The initiated are talking to each other through these movies. That's what I get out of it. And if you catch a bit of it, you know, that's good on you. But don't watch The Eternals. It's not worth it.